Hello my chickadees. I'm going to demonstrate how to use watercolor to make different textures using different techniques to blend. So starting off, I'm going to do what's called a gradient. Now a gradient is a fade. This is actually what it's going to look like. A gradient is a fade of watercolor. Now the trick to this is you have to add more and more water. So I got my water. And I'm going to mix in my tray to start. I'm going to grab the blue because I want to do that color. And I'm just putting water in my blue. And I really want to soak up the color in my brush so it's very dark. And if it's not dark enough, grab more. The more you layer, the darker it gets. See that? Now if I want it to fade, I dip my brush in the water and I just slide. And notice the farther I go out, the more it fades. And I can add more water too to really fade it. So again, you can start off very dark, and the more water that you add, the more it fades out. And I can actually soak up some of this too. Like, see, I have excess there. If I take all the water out of my brush by squeezing it over this, I can then soak up some of the water to make it even lighter. So that's a gradient. Goes from dark to light. Okay. The next one I'm going to show you is called I call it marbling. It's mixing of different colors. I suggest that when you do this, that you mix colors that are similar. So like all cool colors or all warm colors. I wouldn't do opposite colors because what happens when you mix opposites, like if I mixed a blue and an orange, because they're opposite on the color wheel, because they're opposites, they neutralize and you get mud. You get mud color. Same thing if you mix purple and yellow. If I mix those two, I get like a gray. Gets into mud. Same thing with red and green. Because they're opposites, they will always turn like a gray brown mud color. So I don't suggest doing that with these. Instead, like again, cool colors or warm colors. So I'll demonstrate it with warm colors. So I'm going to start off with yellow. And again, I really want to soak up my brush. So I got this cool little swatch. And then I'm gonna grab some orange, really soak up my brush. And I just kind of want to let it bleed into the, see how it wanted to pull? I just want it to bleed into the yellow a bit. Grab some red. And it creates this cool marbling effect. I did a similar one the other day with cool colors, and this is what I got. In case you want to do something like that. So marbling. All right. Next, I got some fun ones for you guys. So next I'm going to demonstrate what's called a crayon resist. So for this you're going to need a white crayon and your watercolor. You can make any type of mark making for this. You want to make sure you press down with the white crayon. You're not going to see it on the page yet. Okay, so I could do simple lines, or maybe a swirly. Okay, however you want to do it. You can't see right now really well what I did, but I put enough pressure that it marked the paper. So now I'm going to pick a color. Pick purple for this one. And I'm soaking up my brush. And you sweep over anywhere you drew. See that? And what's happening is the crayon is resisting the paint. So you're left with the marks. So again, this is called a crayon resist. Very simple to do. My last two are fan favorites. Students always love doing these last two. So the next one I'm going to do is a salt. And this one, I'll show you the finished example. It's not going to look like much. Starting out for this, you're going to need some salt, table salt. And what you do is I'm going to take, what do I want to do for this one? I'm going to take some green. I don't have anything green yet. And I'm just going to make a little sweep. Need some more green. Okay, so I marked it up. While the paint is still wet, this will only work if the paint is still wet, you take your salt and you sprinkle it on the paint. Okay, see, it's already soaking it up. What's happening is the salt is very dry, so it's sucking up all the water. And you gotta let it dry. You gotta let it sit for a few minutes. Once it's completely dry, you're gonna get this cool, almost rock-like or coral texture. It doesn't look like much now, but in a few minutes it will. I'll show you the end result. I did one earlier. The salt, you want to sweep away the excess once it's dry, but it looks like this when it's done. Like it, see how it pulls and crackles and whatnot? Again, great for like if you want like a rough texture, or if you are doing something that's like coral reef. Okay, my last one is my favorite one because I think it's the best. It shows the best. So this last one is called alcohol, and you need rubbing alcohol. Everybody should have some in their house. Okay, especially now with the pandemic, everybody should have some rubbing alcohol. So I'm going to take some of this and I'm going to put it in a little cup. That way I don't make a mess. Don't need a ton. Well, I'm making a mess anyway. And what I want to do is I'm taking my brush. If you have an eyedropper at home, you can do it with that too. But I'm going to do it with my brush because I don't have an eyedropper here. I'm going to take a color and I sweep it out. Okay, so I picked purple. And I want to take, so if you have an eyedropper, great, you can use that. I'm not going to use it because I don't have one. I'm going to use my brush. So I take all the water out of my brush. I'm squeezing all the water out of my brush. Okay? So I have a dry brush and I'm putting my brush in the rubbing alcohol. Okay? Notice why I put this in a cup, because it's actually cleaning my brush. You don't want to put it right in the bottle. You'll turn your alcohol purple or whatever color. So now I'm going to take my alcohol covered brush and I'm just going to drip onto the wet paint. And notice it makes like these really cool targets or dots. What's happening is this is also resisting the paint. So it's kind of like oil and water, and it's pushing away the paint, and it's doing these really cool like fades. So something to play with. Again, this is rubbing alcohol. If you wanted to do another type of drip texture, again, you could use see, it's already changing. It's looking cool. You could use an eyedropper, or you could use your brush. Again, I take all the water out of my brush, and I want to get color all soaked up, and I could just drip and let it dry like that, and that will give you a nice texture too. Or you could do splatter. Different ways of doing things. All right, so I hope that was helpful, and I hope you have a great time making this project, and that you have good luck with your textures. Okay.